fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I am so excited to be joined today by Stuart Ortiz, who is the writer and director and editor of Strange Harvest, and also joined by Jesse Clarkson, who doubles as Mr. Shiny as well as the production designer for Strange Harvest. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure. One thing I will admit is that I was at Fantastic Fest last year, and my biggest regret was not going to see Strange Harvest because the buzz was so strong that I'm like, wow, I cannot believe I missed my chance there. But I've made up for that lost time, and I gotta say, as someone who's not a big found footage viewer usually, holy shit, amazing work. Supremely entertaining and very, very scary. So kudos to you both on amazing job well done on this film.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Of course. And my first question for you, Stuart, is going to be just, I know you had originally came up with the idea after seeing the success of Tiger King on Netflix and starting to see the growth of true crime. But I'm curious to know, how much of the Southern California kind of true crime history has influenced the story because there's so many. I mean, there was the guy who was, I think for 50 years was out there like committing crimes across different counties. So
Oh
how
yeah,
did you
yeah.
balance?
Oh yeah. I mean, you have I think you're talking about the Golden State Killer. I mean, I feel like just something about Southern California and Northern California to some extent too. It's just a weird melting pot of serial killers and serial killer activity. I guess because the state is so big and so sprawling, and there's just so much of it, I guess. And in
Yeah.
particular, the Inland Empire is just a strange area in California, and I think when I was writing this story, it all by osmosis, all of these things kind of come together, and it just kind of led me to a place where I was like, this seems like a believable lore, and it seems like a story that could have believably happened somewhere in Southern California, like the Inland Empire, and people wouldn't have heard of it necessarily. So that was kind of the idea.
I mean, especially an area like the Inland Empire, which is kind of so vast. I don't think people that don't aren't from Southern California's landscape don't realize how big and also how empty parts of the Inland Empire are.
Right, right,
So
yeah.
it is the kind of place where you could, figuratively and literally hide some bodies. Um,
Right.
now, now, Jesse, you take on the role of Mr. Shiny here, and there's such a commanding performance that you give that, especially given that you don't have, hardly any, if all, dialogue in the film. What kind of things do you do to prepare to put yourself in the headspace of someone who's downright awful?
That's a good question. I mean, Stuart and I had talked about this early on, and then in terms of, I'm certainly not an actor by traditional standards, but the idea of, people give somebody a backstory, somebody give them, you give them something of who he is. And the more I thought about it, what kind of trauma is it? Is he, does he have mental health issues? Has he been abused? And it was like, no, I don't want to give this guy anything. He's a monster. He's
Right.
literally, don't give him anything. Don't give him any sort of sense of empathy or sympathy. It's just this apathetic character. I mean, I think there's a line in the film where she's like, he's a true believer and he's dangerous. And that really kind of drove home of just like, he doesn't care. It's a matter of he believes that what he's doing is right. Anything that gets in his way, he mows through it with no sense of remorse, with not even a matter of, it's like walking through a spider web to him. Just, it doesn't matter what he's doing, what he's killing. He has a sole purpose. So in that, I mean, it's a bit delicious to play such a horrific character
Yeah.
because you just get to be creepy and just weird and just kind of lean into it. And especially wearing a mask is very freeing, as anybody will tell you. When you put a mask on, it's not you who's doing these weird things; it's this character. And my background mostly is in creature performing, puppeteering, and whatnot. I've done a bit of acting, and more than what I've done is usually some sort of wearing a mask of some kind. So in that, I always kind of approach it as I'm a puppeteer and I'm the puppet. So I'm really just kind of going through the motions, you know, less so than, I mean, most actors, obviously and I have great respect for the craft who do it much more seriously than I do. But for me, it was a matter of like, don't give him anything. And that's what makes him that much more soulless and that much more animalistic, is he's just, you know, he takes what he wants and with no regard for human life or for anyone else.
I mean, I think something you said there. So you don't want to almost go too much of a, you don't want to give too much of a sympathy, you know, character to these entities, because they are like, they become almost sympathetic at that point. So I think there's a fine line between investing enough story in them to be able to act the part, but at the same time not giving them an out or an excuse at an emotional level for why they are what they are, do what they do. And I think that bedroom scene in particular puts into context just how much you mean business. Um, Definitely one of the better screen life scenes I've seen this year of
Nice.
the bedroom attack scene. So, you know, Stuart, I want to ask you, I mean, maybe it's for you both, you know, in regards to the mask itself for Mr. Shiny. You know, obviously it's not a slasher film, but there are slasher tropes involved. And what makes a great slasher film often comes down to the mask. So I'm curious, you know, how did you all come up with the idea for the mask, and what kind of iterations did you go through to get to the final product?
I have to give all of this credit to Jesse. This mask was very much his baby.
You know, we had talked about it early on, you know, and that's the thing, is a masked slasher, for lack of a better term, can really make or break. There's been a lot of really good ones. There's been a lot of really bad ones. You have the iconic, you know, Jason, Michael Myers, you know, Ghostface, Leatherface, and some of those are great. Some of them aren't so great. But what you try to come up with your own thing that hasn't been done before. Stuart had very much in mind of, you know, we needed something that reflected the symbol of the 3 points, you know, the triangle, the stars, you know, or the planets lining up, all of that. And so going back and forth, I was kind of doing doodles and doing stuff in my own head. And I had seen Pink Floyd The Wall probably when I was too young. But there's a scene from that where they're having the kids from Another Brick in the Wall, when they're actually marching the kids into the meat grinder. And they had these faces. I mean, I haven't even gone back and rewatched it. I just remember that. I almost don't want to spoil it for myself, because the image I have in my head as a 10-year-old kid or whatever, seeing that is way better than what I probably actually saw. So, there was just something so human but inhuman about that. You know, there's 2 eyes and a mouth, but I felt like that kind of reflected the character that much more, is just the fact that he's human, but he's not. And trying to make something that is just, you know, horrific and recognizable, but unrecognizable, but also serves the story. I'd done a couple sketches. I did one thing in ZBrush, I think, and sent it over to Stuart, and he loved it. And I've got, I have my own shop. I had our lead sculptor, Darren Roberts. He sculpted it out and gave it the nice leathery texture to it. And, you know, so it was really kind of a team effort bringing it to life, just kind of running the gamut. But once we locked onto that idea, it was pretty easy to kind of execute that once we knew what we wanted, to really kind of bring it to life.
And talking about the scene in the bedroom, that was always meant to be kind of our big reveal moment of the mask. And that was always in my mind. This has got to be really disturbing and just really off-putting when he comes so close. And yeah, it was really gratifying to see us filming that, because I was just like, this is exactly kind of what I was thinking. I mean, I didn't know what that mask was going to be exactly, but Jesse channeled some sort of evil energy with that mask, most certainly, because it's pretty off-putting.
It is. It's just an uncomfortable scene, the way he kind of leers in front of the camera, looking at it almost like, you know, Michael Myers has that head tilt that he does that kind of, you know, shows that he's not, you know, there's a little bit of human in there. And I think we get a little bit of that, is that he had that same kind of almost curiosity as he's looking at the camera and seeing what's going on. And it works extremely well. So goosebumps all around, you know, and Stuart, I'm curious to know kind of the influence of kind of Lovecraft horror and stuff you've brought into this. You know, I think what separates Strange Harvest, you know, from just your traditional found footage and mockumentary approach is that it does walk a fine line between reality and kind of imagination quite well, to the point where I did Google, admittedly, at the end. I'm like, did this really happen? Like, did he embellish some of this stuff? But did this really happen? So
Nice.
how did you walk that line between, again, you know, adding in the supernatural elements, but at the same time keeping it very grounded in our reality?
I think it just comes down to the information that you dole out. I mean, I wrote a pretty complex Bible that was like a mythology of kind of how this all came to be, of the Mr. Shiny character, sort of, like what he experienced and what the character ultimately sort of believed in, and this ancient god, this ancient cult that basically is going on. I had all that stuff fleshed out, but then it's a matter of like, I knew all that stuff was what was going on in the background, but you barely reveal any of that, right? You just give just a
Right.
hint of it, just a little bit of that is peering out like under the surface. And I think that was always the approach, is that I wanted the internal logic of all of this stuff to make sense, all of the cosmic core elements to have an internal logic that just made sense. And even though none of it's truly explained on much of a real level, I think there's some added element of just when the internal logic is in place and it's not all just kind of pure fantasy and just whatever. When there's actually something that seems to be like there's something that makes sense there, I think it's just a lot more off-putting, because you're like, you key in on certain things and go, I think there's something larger going on here.
I mean, I think you're right in that having that context about you, like what is going on, but you can't use exposition and give us exposition to death, right? Oh, and this is what this means, and this is how that fits together. So I think, again, very adept, delivering the information over the course of the runtime, and then by the end, I think it's left with quite a great conclusion, way to end it, as far as satisfying the people who want closure, but also offering something that kind of makes us think that there maybe isn't an end here. And my last question for you both, kind of a fun one, but I've been given some feedback. It's kind of difficult, which is, if you were asked to program a double feature with Strange Harvest, what do you think would make a good companion to watch alongside it?
Ooh, oh, that's a tough one. Oh man, let me think about that. Jesse, what you got anything? Let me think. A double feature, what would make sense with this? I mean, I feel like some kind of documentary or something along those lines would maybe make sense.
I mean, I would say my first knee-jerk reaction would honestly be the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I
I
don't
love
know
it.
how well that would actually play, but the fact that that felt so real and gritty, I don't know which one you would play first. I think probably Texas Chainsaw Massacre first, and then this. So you see the horror film, and then you see the documentary of it in real life. That would be my knee-jerk reaction. I mean, you don't want to go, Blair Witch Project or Poughkeepsie Tapes or something like that. That's great, but you're kind of
Right.
setting yourself up for it. But certainly not to compare us to Texas Chainsaw Massacre by any means, but just the fact that that was such at the time, the film they used and how they shot it was so gritty and real. I feel like, and then how Stuart, made this as well, had that same feeling to it, without realizing you're in a horror movie. Until almost a third of the way through it, before most people are like, wait a minute, is this real, or is this, it takes
Uh,
quite a few people. I had taken somebody to see the premiere when we did the cast and crew screening, and until they showed my passport picture, she had no idea that it was a fake movie. She thought we were watching this true crime documentary, and she saw me and she was like, wait, what's going, I thought this was real. So
Yeah,
that
we've had
was,
that happen a couple times. I had an actress from the film at like one of the screenings we did. An actress who's in the movie came up to me and said, "Is this a real story?" And I was like, "You're an actress in the film. No, it's not real." I know what my answer is though for your question for the double feature. It would have to be This Is Spinal
Okay.
Tap. It would have to be This Is Spinal Tap.
ah, absolutely.
Outstanding pick. One, because it's a great film, but also because it does very much in the same, when you watch this Spinal Tap, you're constantly wondering to yourself, have I almost having a Gala effect? Or like, have I heard this band before? Like, it's almost like that movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg. It's like, is this Aiden that they're playing? I'm not sure. So uh yeah, I think those would make great. I mean, first of all, there's no wrong answers here. So between Texas Chainsaw Massacre and This Is Spinal Tap, both of them are outstanding choices and easily done features I'd purchase a ticket to. I think, there's so much about Strange Harvest, it feels so much like the thrillers, the kind of the violent thrillers we in the 90s, like Fallen or Seven. So I think there's a bit of that kind of occult meets true crime in there as well. You can't really go
Absolutely.
wrong either way. And as I'm coming up on my time here, I just want to say that for everyone watching this, please do yourself the favor to go see Strange Harvest in theaters on August 8th. Is this something you're going to want to talk about with people afterwards? You're going to want to think you're going to have to check your phones to make sure what you're seeing is true or not. So please make a point to get out to the theater and watch this. Scare the shit out of yourselves. And Stuart and Jessee, congrats again on the film. Can't wait to see what you're doing next, and looking forward to whatever it is.
Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
My pleasure. Nice meeting you as well.